Oh, hey, am I live? Okay, I hope this is working, you guys. I've been struggling so hard to get this connection to go. Welcome, welcome. This is my weekly This Week in Resistance Live. It's an AMA where you are welcome to bring up any subjects that you are interested in American life, American resistance. And thanks for being patient with me. I'm still struggling with some internet fiddling out here in my studio. I've gotten a booster and I've tried moving it to different places in the house so that it will reach out here better. And I still struggle a little bit with the connection. So if it's unstable or you guys are having a hard time, let me know. I'm currently I'm currently piggybacking off of my cell phone and not actually connected to the Wi-Fi. So hopefully the connection is good. Thank you. Thanks for being here, even though we're powering through together. So I hope everybody is doing well. I have all kinds of things that I want to talk about. It has been a weird weekend. We got home yesterday, was it? I think from picking our kid up on the coast, and I was up very. Wait, was it the day before? I don't know what even is time. And I was up till about 3 a.m. just because I'm so busy with catching up and getting plugged back in. And so I'm a little bit discombobulated, but I'm caught up on the news. So I hope that that's helpful. Oh no, we got back on Saturday. Yesterday, I spent the day going to my local organizing group for my neighborhood. And then on Sundays, our neighborhood coffee shop, Parker's Coffee, there is a group of us that do like a crafternoon on Sundays. So I brought my sweater and I tried to work on that done. I got the left side of the cardigan finished, and then today I'm going to work on the right side of the cardigan while we chat. So wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, absolutely. Also, it's just like a little bit weird for me in terms of scheduling because I think most folks know my husband is a high school teacher and it's still summer break for him. And so in the summer, time passes really weird. Two of my kids have been taking summer classes, and then my boys have been off, but also busy doing other things. And so once Casey starts back to school and my three eldest kids are, at university, then things will be hopefully a little bit more regular, a little bit more scheduled. Can I talk about the DNC platform? Thank you for asking a question and rescuing me from my ramble, Oregon seniors. So what would y'all like to talk about? I put out 2 videos talking about Hakeem Jeffries in specific and sort of the Democratic establishment. And I had a little back and forth with somebody on Blue Sky earlier today about it, which I think is understandable. Sometimes, you guys, I employ hyperbole and I try and overemphasize a point in order to really communicate. And I realize sometimes people take me really literally, but I feel like the Democratic position is still far too corporate, far too interested in finding good billionaires to, fix this mess, or not even fix it, just stabilize it so that the status quo can be restored. And we see progressives and DSA candidates who are like, we should dream bigger. We deserve big. We deserve so much more than what we've had. And I think it's creating this tension and this conflict in the party that's really good, right? Well, the DNC is looking at abysmal fundraising and we're looking at very low approval ratings for the Democratic Party. We're looking at all of this energy and excitement for more progressive candidates and also DSA candidates. And so I was really frustrated yesterday by what Jeffries was saying in his interview on Meet the Press. It was not unexpected at all, considering the amount of money that he takes from Palantir and the amount of money that he takes from healthcare, big healthcare. I think he took more than $300,000 this election cycle. And he's like, there was no primary, right? And he's going to win in his district overwhelmingly. Jeffries is incredibly popular in his district. So why did he need to take $300,000 from big healthcare, right, for his reelection? I think that is all frustrating. But at the same time, I think it portends poorly for the Democratic establishment. It says that they are not keeping pace with what the electorate wants. They've not really become more conservative. Their voter base has become far more progressive and has decided to reach for the stars and to expect better. And so I think we're going to continue to see this conflict when the money that has historically run the Democratic Party is at odds with what the voters want. And the voters realize that, hey, we actually can elect people who will deliver on their promises instead of saying 2 more weeks or next election cycle or further down the road. I think we're going to see this tension continue, and I think it's a really good thing. I think it'll be good for democracy. Yeah, I don't know what y'all think. Yeah, we do deserve better. Who would you like to be Speaker of the House? That's a great question. I saw somebody in my comments say AOC. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know. She's not going to get elected, right? Because Speaker of the House and also minority or majority leader in the Senate. Those are chosen by members of Congress, and I think overwhelmingly, what we're seeing from both Senate and House Democrats is that they're not going to pick somebody who's really progressive. They're going to pick somebody who's more cautious. Someone in my comments, again, who's disagreeing with me on Blue Sky, said that there's not consensus from the Democratic caucus. And I find that fascinating that we expect complete consensus when we see, like 70, 80, 90% of Democratic voters are in support of these positions, but Democratic representatives are so out of sync with what their voters actually want, that they won't support more progressive leadership. So I don't know. What would you guys think would make for a good move for our Democratic members of Congress in terms of selecting different leadership? We know that Jeffries is going to get chosen to be Speaker. I think that is not a really attainable ask for us in this moment, to push the House to pick somebody different. I think it is attainable for us to push the Senate to pick somebody who's not Chuck Schumer, because he's so incredibly unpopular, even amongst a lot of the Democrats. They don't like him, right? They understand that he's a problem. Democrats have been run by money since the 2000s. Yeah, I mean, kind of like forever, but definitely since the 90s, right? Clinton era Democrats. Yeah, I think when we look at the desire of Democratic leadership to punch left, rather than saying, maybe healthcare for all is not attainable right now, but I understand why you guys would want it, and I'm receptive to conversations about that, right? It's just the way that he shut it down altogether, and the way that we see so many Democrats who, like, what's her name, who ran against Mayock Quiros in Colorado, who she kept saying, like, down the road in the future, but like her top 7 donors were all healthcare PACs, right? Seeing them constantly like kick it down the road, when there are candidates who say we can deal with this immediately. Okay, I think there's a couple of things going on here. So someone in my comments said, well, we can't get healthcare for all now. We can't get Medicare for all now, because then RFK Jr. would have control over all our healthcare and he would dismantle it. And I think that is really short-sighted. I don't think that we're going to accomplish Medicare for all during the Trump presidency, right? That doesn't mean that we shouldn't start laying the expectation and the foundations for those kinds of reforms, but we're not going to implement them. RFK Jr. is not going to be in charge of Health and Human Services forever. And we shouldn't be setting the expectation that we will create universal healthcare in a way that somebody like RFK Jr. could dismantle it. So I think that was a little bit, there's a little bit of a red herring, right? A little bit of straw man, I should say. But I also think that it's good to have progressive candidates now say, I'm running with all of these goals, but it may take us time to get there, but we're going to take actionable steps to move the needle. I'm worried a little bit that there may be progressive voters who want instant gratification without understanding that, like, Donald Trump is still a president. So electing people who will work in that direction while understanding that they're not going to get us universal health care in like March of 2027, I think is good. Okay. By the way, I'm not sure that Trish will be here moderating today, so I'll do my best to keep up with comments. Lauren Underwood from Illinois is a name I hadn't heard of, but I agree with Amanda's mild takes on that one. She's a Black woman who's been on the leaderboard quietly kicking ass. I'm not familiar with her, so I'll have to look her up. Actually, you know what? I am a little bit, but not enough, familiar with her. I don't know whether she would have the support of other Democrats to get elected. I think I would love to see somebody who is more outspoken on behalf of democracy and on behalf of the constituents. I would love to see an anti-AIPAC Democrat get elected as Speaker of the House, but I don't think that's going to happen. It's going to be Hakeem Jeffries for now. I'm not opposed to somebody like Pramila Jayapal, but I don't think that that's a real reach. I think there's right our goals, and then there's having realistic expectations. There's not settling for less than we deserve, but there's also understanding what will move the needle and what is incremental progress. I very much believe in incremental progress, not that it's all or nothing, right? Okay. Thanks for letting me catch up, you guys. Instant gratification is going to come kick us in the butt. I definitely think so. I think it's a terrible mix of we live in a culture of instant gratification, but also we're constantly told to just kick it down the road and keep believing in a sunk cost fallacy. Terrible duality of like, it harms us to do that. Okay, let me catch up on questions here. In terms of other like democratic establishment platform issues, I had somebody ask about why is it that Democrats are not talking more about impeachment. I am somebody who understands that impeachment should have happened 3 dozen times by now, but I also understand that it's only possible if we have enough votes. And so it's not necessarily, it's good to talk about how if we had a majority, if we had a functional government, that Trump would have been impeached. But I think in terms of Democrats investing all of their energy in impeachment, it only really makes sense if they have the votes. And we don't know yet what the Senate is going to look like. It's becoming increasingly likely that we may get a majority in the Senate. I saw that Ohio has gone to likely blue for Sherrod Brown versus a toss-up. So that's really good. I saw that James Tallarico is doing pretty well in the polls, although that's still a toss-up. Maine is still a toss-up. Help me out, you guys. Where else is still a toss-up? Obviously, here in Oregon, Jeff Merkley's getting reelected. Yay! But I think it's hard to make some of those predictions without massive voter turnout that gets us the majority in both houses. Oh gosh, I like to think Ro Khanna has a real shot at being speaker with all of the attention he's getting. Can I talk about Ro Khanna for a second? Because I think people have a love-hate relationship with him. And while I do that, I'm going to try and find my knitting pattern because I can't remember how many stitches I'm supposed to decrease. So bear with me. Okay, so here's the thing about Ro Khanna. I think he is an incredibly savvy politician who has his finger on the pulse of where the American voter is moving, right? I think he's very, very savvy. And I know people have said like he's taken money from like big tech. Well, he's from California, but he's saying the right things now, and he's taking a political risk on universal health care, on partnering with Thomas Massie, on speaking really publicly about getting our taxpayer dollars out of Israel's genocide, right? That they're committing against Palestinians. He went to Palestine. He's making the right moves, and he's taking political risks. And so I think that is worth respecting and honoring. I don't want to discount the way that any member of Congress has their own personal ambitions. And I think it's actually a really good thing when we see politicians who can read the room. Maybe that's like a good foil, a good contrast, because you see Hakeem Jeffries, who's not reading the room from the voters. He's not taking the temperature of the voters, versus Ro Khanna really, really is. I don't think that he'll get picked for speaker. I don't think he has the political capital with other representatives in Congress. I think while we shouldn't expect immediate results, New York City has shown us, yeah, oh yeah, what happens when politicians are willing to make things happen. I completely agree. I think that Zoran Mamdani, while he's working with a unique population, right? New York City is not necessarily representative of every community. He's shown that when you want to do things, you're perfectly capable. Like if they wanted to, they would, I think is what Zoran has shown for a lot of elected officials, right? If they want to follow through on their promises, they will find a way. Not sure how much I trust the polling. I'm really concerned that the polling is lulling us into a false sense of impending victory in the midterms. And I think the 2024 election is really indicative of that. I think Abdul El Sayed only pulling out a 1% win was really indicative of the polling being skewed and necessarily not trustworthy. And I think that we should presume that we are behind in every single race and push for a massive get out the vote movement. So yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't think we should rest on our laurels when it comes to voting, especially because they're going to look for any way that they can possibly disenfranchise voters or throw out votes. We need it to be too big to rig. We need it to be like Hungary, right? We need like 80% voter turnout, huge turnout. We need to make sure everybody gets to the polls. Okay. I am catching up on comments, you guys. I still didn't find my pattern. I'm doing this decrease for the shoulder. I have been doing so many small projects that I have not been working on this cardigan like I should have. And I really want to get it done. And now it's just all of this part that's just straight green, 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 green. I don't have to follow a chart. So as soon as I get done with this decrease section, then I will be able to, I'll be able to just go while I'm on live. Or filming videos, and then I'll be able to wear my sweater in the winter. Yay. We need to organize voting parties. Yeah. People are embarrassed to admit who they're voting for. You know what? I think that's a really good point. I think that, I think we saw a lot of people in the 2024 election who knew that they personally wanted to vote for Donald Trump, but they didn't want to admit it to everybody else. And so we can't trust what people say in a poll, either in a poll in advance or in an exit poll. I have a video coming out later today about why it is that we are in a position where people have voted in a fascist. And I watched a really interesting video from a historian, a history professor, who was talking about what happened in 1930s Germany and like was breaking down the demographics of like who voted for Hitler in the 30s, right? Who voted in fascism and how much it overlaps with the population that voted in Donald Trump, like how history repeats itself and what is required. What group of voters do you need to activate in order to overcome the folks who chose to support fascism last time? I think it does help that Trump's current approval rating is an all-time low. The poll that came out today is 33%. So you're looking at tremendous apathy for him, and that because Republicans have tied themselves to Donald Trump and they are the party of MAGA, apathy for Trump or antipathy for Trump results in apathy when it comes to Republicans turning out in the midterms, or hopefully will. We know that older conservative, like older Gen X and Boomer conservatives, they're a really reliable voting bloc, and so we do have to plan for that. Okay, me sitting here with a bad taste of Ossoff as someone who stalked him as my senator for many years. I think Ossoff is being put forward as a potential future Democratic presidential candidate. I know that he has said categorically last week that he will not be running for president in 2028. And I think that is, whether that's true or not, politicians change their minds all the time. It is something that he's not going to tell his voters right before he's up for election, like I might ditch this job in less than 2 years. He's not going to tell them that, right? So I don't know whether we should take that. I'm definitely not going to run for president in 2028 with a grain of salt. I know there's a lot of people who would love to push him forward, and he's pushing a really strong anti-corruption platform. And so I think that's quite compelling. I think it's quite a successful move. I don't know enough about him. I know he doesn't take AIPAC money. I don't know enough about him in particular, like in his positions and the evolution of his positions, to have like any negative opinions about him. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if you have any. I don't know if you have any insight. Hello, Goofy Goober. How are you? Oh, okay. Ossoff had a high missed vote rate in early 2025. I think he was initially quite timid in a number of areas that I wasn't pleased with, but he's kind of found his spine, and we want to give folks their flowers, right? If they're moving in the right direction, if they're taking a more aggressive stance, then we want to support that. The 10 Commandments thing in Texas is really interesting. That'll be really interesting to see how that pans out. I don't know what SCOTUS is going to do. Did you guys see that the Supreme Court declined to take up Donald Trump's, again, like emergency appeal about E. Jean Carroll? So the $5.6 million that he paid out to her is going to stand. I think was it Elena Kagan who said recently Also, I think Justice Sotomayor has talked about this too, that they don't feel that the Supreme Court is entirely captured for Donald Trump. And I think there are some ways in which that's true. It's interesting to me to see where the line is that they won't cross for him and what drives that. What they are is really pro. The six uber conservative justices are super, super pro an incredibly strong unitary executive. So if we get a Democrat in the 2028 election, will they still be as pro unitary executive as they are now? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because their voting has been much more in alignment, I think, with that philosophy than just like, Donald Trump is the guy in the executive and he's doing all of the Christo-fascist things they want, but I think it's the position more than him that they support. So, um, okay. Oh, you were wondering about Ossoff as the majority leader. Oh, you mean in the Senate? You know what? I don't know. He's young. He's energetic. He may have the riz to get. I don't know. Actually, I don't want to speculate on that. I know that people have said Chris Van Hollen is someone they would love to see. I think maybe Sheldon Whitehouse is kind of positioning himself that way. He's been making a number of really strong stances, anti-corruption stances that are really appealing to the electorate and appealing to, I think, more of a broader coalition in the Senate. I don't have enough insight there about the inner workings of who they might vote for. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm actually really excited to think about a future where Chuck Schumer is not in charge of the Senate Democrats. Hello in Sweden. Hi. Um, do you think Ossoff has skeletons that non-Georgians don't know about? And this is, I know I take flack for this all the time, but especially because I dip my toe in places I probably shouldn't. But I do really believe in representative democracy. And so I do really think that the folks who are going to get elected in other states or in other districts are not going to look like their policy and platforms are not going to look exactly like mine in Portland, Oregon. And I expect that not everybody is going to want to vote for a Democratic Socialist candidate, or not everybody is going to want to vote for somebody as progressive as Jeff Merkley, right? Because we aren't homogenous across the country, and I think democracy still works when you have diversity um, in the ruling party, right? Republicans have like these five factions. And we hear so often in the Democrats, like, oh, well, any disagreement is infighting. Any policy difference is infighting. We got to vote blue no matter who, but we also have to to unify around different positions, even when those positions are not what the electorate wants. I think disagreement is healthy. I think that's how you get progress as a party. I think it's how you get a dynamic, evolving party that responds to the needs of the constituents. And we see in the Republican Party these warring factions, these different caucuses. And then the Democratic Party, you have the Progressive Caucus, which has about 100 members. But overwhelmingly, it's like very corporate controlled. What is it? Like 80% of Democrats take APAC money, for example. So there is not the same understanding that conflict is healthy or disagreement is healthy, and that we can have a diversity of policy opinions. I think that's why progressive candidates and the DSA are such a threat to the Democratic establishment, because they've been like unity. It's been that toxic, that toxic unity that they've really insisted upon. That dishonest harmony, right? We can't have disagreement. Disagreement is bad, but disagreement's really healthy. And as long as we have an entrenched two-party system, it's natural to have these different caucuses with different priorities and different levels of right progressivism. I think that's really good. Hello, Ogden. How are you? What do I think about the socialist movements? Oh, I've talked about this before. So, I think that there are ups and downs. Here in Portland, I tend to align a little bit more, I think, with Working Families Party. But, I voted for Democratic Socialists here in Portland. If there's a Democratic Socialist on the ticket, I'm definitely going to listen to what they want. I'm not sure that I am aligned 100% with everything on the Democratic Socialist platform, right? There are some ways that I'm not necessarily cheesed about everything, and I think that that's okay. I think a lot of their positions are much more reflective of my own personal political beliefs. And I think that it's good to have normalization of like what even is socialism, right? It's so misunderstood and so vilified. Like we still have the Red Scare, we still have McCarthy, vestiges of McCarthyism, and we see Republicans trying to reconstitute that. And I think it's failing utterly because you have democratic socialists who are very clearly like, we want our taxpayer dollars to go for working class people. We want universal health care. We don't want to fund a genocide. We want to tax billionaires out of existence. And so when you have socialist candidates who are saying things like healthcare is a human right, you deserve to have affordable healthcare. The narrative from Republicans, actually, I have a video coming out on this, I think it's tomorrow. The narrative from Republicans of like healthcare is not a human right. It doesn't vibe anymore, right? When you have people saying dream bigger for yourself, dream differently, dream better for yourself, I think that that's a really good thing, and I think we should expect pretty significant propaganda and pushback because that's such a threat to the ruling class. um, I would love to see, I think my Congresswoman Maxine Dexter has actually talked about this. I would love to see a reconstitution of the Civilian Conservation Corps. I would love to see more investment of taxpayer resources into hiring people, new Deal kinds of programs. I think that could be really, really beneficial for us. And I think also, um, I think I linked to it on Blue Sky. There was a piece that came out a couple days ago talking about how much Gen Z hates tech bros. Like they hate the oligarchs. They hate the tech bro oligarchs in particular, like more than they hate anything else. And so I think when you're looking at a period in our history where the tide is turning, particularly with younger, more mobilized voters against the oligarchy, against the billionaires, you're starting to see, um, you know, a significant shift from think back to like 2015, 2012, 2014, when people thought Elon Musk was like just some kind of funky, cool, innovative. Oh, he's got his Teslas and what have you. And he's just like, he's a good guy. There are good billionaires, like all of that bullshit rhetoric. We now see through all of it. And so we're changing as a country from like worship of billionaires to like, why the fuck do these guys exist at all? Look at the harm, the outsized harm that they cause. Why are we putting them on a platform? Why are we pedestaling these guys? We should just tax them out of existence. I think that's a really good and exciting time. And I think socialism helps drive some of that. And also that cultural shift is driving more of the socialist politics in this country. So, oh gosh, thank you, Ogden. Thank you. I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best. I think that we all are. I put out a video last week that I think maybe got some people down where I was like, I'm really worried about the midterms. You guys, I'm really worried that people aren't prepared. And I did kind of just lament and not offer a solution. So I want to talk about that more later this week. Like, what should we be doing? Because it's not hopeless, but how do we activate our neighbors who are like a little bit apathetic? How do we help people overcome that barrier? If voting is now more inconvenient or less accessible, how do we help people understand the urgency? And then how do we help people get ready right now for what's going to happen afterward? I am definitely a little bit worried. Tim Snyder was talking about this morning. I'm a little bit worried about people thinking that voting will be enough, or hoping, like wishful thinking that voting will be enough. And instead of planning for upcoming sacrifices that we're probably going to have to make, I'm a little bit worried about it, especially as we're looking at folks in Albania who've been like marching in the streets for, what is it, like 70 days or something, and really escalating their protests and seeing change from that. I'm like, mass mobilization of the people is what will stop this. And I'm worried that the structure tests we've had thus far have not been sufficient, right? So what's the next structure test? And then how do we help build out capacity? What does that look like? I'm not worried about people in Portland will take to the street. I'm not worried about Portland. I'm worried about a massive response that will be sufficient and expansive across enough of the country, particularly in swing districts, right? It's going to be those districts where a Republican election official is like going to throw out votes or going to declare actually the Republican won, or it's going to, do whatever Donald Trump wants. I'm worried about the mobilization and response in those districts, and how can those of us in safe blue districts help and support those folks. I don't have all the answers though. Oh, hello in California. I hope it's not too hot and dry out there. It's pretty hot here in Portland today. Yeah, I don't want to be doomery. I don't want to be doomery. I just I'm getting a little worried. I'm getting a little twitchy. especially because I do think that there are enough Democrats who are just like, let's show up and vote, and that will be enough. And it won't be enough. We cannot pull off a general strike at this time. We can't pull it off. We can't even pull off a targeted labor strike at this time. I think a lot of the momentum went out of the really good Friday general strikes that were happening in Minnesota, and that's kind of petered out. I was hoping that would catch across the country, and it hasn't. So I don't know. I'm a little stressed about it. I don't think it's too late by any means. I just think we need to get down to business. We need to get serious. I'm so burned out. Yes, I think this is typical for most Americans. We're exhausted. How do we build up capacity to get the heavy lifts accomplished? I don't know if you've seen the woke 1 versus woke 2 stuff, but I find it alarming as a way to normalize abandoning progressive policy. Goofy Goober, I have tried to stay out of that a little bit because it feels like a really big distraction. I agree with you. I feel like it is normalizing abandoning progressive. I agree with you. There's definitely a little bit of that. There's always the attempt to move the needle or to get us to expect less. I think there's a difference, right, between understanding we deserve this much and then understanding that we actually have to craft a plan. We have to have a plan that we need to implement, right? We're not going to get universal health care unless we have an action plan that like steps us toward it. And that's not going to happen instantly, but also we still deserve universal health care, right? Is the problem a lack of people organizing, or is it that the organizers don't have people following them? That's a great question. I don't know, because a lot of organizing happens locally and maybe behind the scenes in ways that I'm not aware of. So maybe I'm more worried than I need to be. I don't know. I can only look at what's happening in terms of my neighborhood organizing. Nobody in my social circle is ready to like call off work for 2 or 3 weeks and like camp out in the streets. So I don't know. I think there are plenty of Portlanders who are, but not the like comfortable middle class Portlanders, or not people who are working 2 or 3 jobs and like desperately need their health care for their children. So I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer than that. I think there are a lot of local organizers who are working very earnestly in ways that we don't see. But then it's incumbent upon us to go search out those folks and to search out those local groups. I wish people wouldn't even use words like woke or fake news. I agree. Woke is like, let's find a new term. Woke has been co-opted in a way that's totally not helpful. Watching Dr. Hillary, I agree. I found her several weeks ago, and I really like her content. I really, really like her. She's very, very good, and I think that she has really good messaging, and she's not just like pie in the sky. She's not a hope peddler, right? I like her a lot. I found her on Instagram. I agree we can do an economic strike. I agree. Who can afford a strike? I think the problem is, right, we've not reached a point where we feel like we have more to lose by not striking than striking. And how do you push that, right? Where people understand how bad it will get very, very quickly. Jeff, guys, I don't know if my neighbor kids are too loud. They're so cute. Everybody's enjoying the summer day. Right. So I think that my senator, I know I keep talking about Jeff Merkley, but I just love him. He's also like spoken very honestly. He's been saying for months and months and months now in his town halls that he is worried if Donald Trump is successful in pulling shenanigans in the midterms, that it will be significantly harder to recover our democracy afterward. Like the midterms are crucially important, and he's tried to communicate while also not sharing people. Casey's coming up to say hi. Hi, are you bringing me bubble water?
Yes. Also to remind people, there is merch now.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thanks for the bubble water. Just showing my middle-agedness. I love me a bubble water. Something happens when you turn 40.
You've never liked still water, though.
I don't really like still water, but I did like water with lemon, or like I'm trying to not have so much coffee, and so I love me a bubble water. Okay.
Anyway, it's getting warmer, so I thought I'd bring you something.
Thank you. Thanks. It is I'm a little sweaty. It's a little hot out here. Okay. Sorry, you guys. Oh, could you hear my chickens in the background? There's crows that are quite loud. It's a little bit hot, so my chickens and ducks are kind of chilling in the shade. That's a crow. I don't know if you can hear that. Allegheny pawpaws are dropping fruit this week. Oh gosh, mine won't be ready for weeks and weeks and weeks. Usually it's like late September, mid to late September. I'm so jealous. Um, Still water Eurocentric nomenclature. Ha. It's a shame, because we have some of the best tasting water in the entire world here in Portland. We have Bull Run water, and it's considered like peak water. When I go other places, I'm like, I can't drink your tap water. I'm too spoiled by Portland water. But I do love me a bubble water. I understand it's not good. It's not good to use all the aluminum, and actually, bubble water is like a little bit acidic and not good for your teeth. But okay. In my rural area, the closest people organizing are 30 to 45 minutes away, and they're in their 80s, and they don't know how to use technology as tools. Mm, how to reach young people. That how do we connect those folks? Because I think young people are organizing in their own way. Like here in Portland, Youth DSA is very active, and I think a lot of the organizing that young people are doing is far more like DSA or anarchists, and they're doing their own thing. So how do we have solidarity with each other and like coordinate a little bit more? I know here 5051 is much more like millennials, and Indivisible is much more like Gen X and boomers. How do we bridge that generational gap so that we may not be going to the same meetings, but we're all moving our little canoes in the same direction, and we may be doing different things, but they are augmenting each other's efforts. I think that kind of coordination is something I would love to see more of. And we're not quite seeing it yet. So yeah. Um, Maybe in four years you won't want bubble water. My kids, I don't know. My kids give me a hard time for it. They drink a lot more like matcha, and they're constantly making tea. They really likes that Korean roasted barley tea, which is not got caffeine, but also just like tastes really, really good. I like it on a cold day. A tea drinker, I'm much more of a coffee drinker. Technology divide is an issue. It's not even just you are online. You have to be at the right sites and apps to connect across. Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. I was commenting. Sorry, I've not picked up my knitting, you guys. I don't really know what I'm doing here. Um, it's so hard because I think that we're looking at the way that technology is such an advantage, but how do we support people for who technology is a barrier so that they can participate? I don't know if like older folks are still using like phone trees or how they're communicating. I know that there has been some effort to try and do more like educating about how to get on Slack or how to use, how to sign up for Mobilize and things like that. And I think that's really good to sit down and help people get signed up so they can just get like a text to notify them. Fermented honey lemon with mint and soda water. Ooh, that sounds really good. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm catching up on comments, you guys. Those apps actively not wanting you to focus on doing things, just raging, it doesn't help. I agree with that. This is my whole existential crisis. I realize I yap about it way too much. My whole existential crisis is like, how is it that we educate people, and like how much time do we spend online? How much time do we spend educating ourselves? And when does that become self-indulgent in a way, right? When is that benefiting the platform and not us? And I think that balance is really hard to strike. I found myself 3 a.m. with insomnia, like doom scrolling Instagram. Like, why am I doing that? I got to catch up on sleep because I got shit to do today, right? It's hard. It's hard to strike that balance. We live in the information age, and yet there are no boundaries put on it, and so we have to decide for ourselves when is sufficient. When do I know enough? I've seen a lot more people really pushing back against consuming large quantities of content and feeling like they've reached a tipping point. And I wonder if that also is bringing about a new era where I talked about this yesterday, where social media is so captured and it's so like commodified, and people are not having the kind of authentic experience that they want. What they want is connection, right? Social media was supposed to foster connection, and I was just like, you're being marketed to all the time. So where else can we go for connection? Every time those in power make a move, we get a chance to decide to make a counter move. And it's not like we have to continue to use all of these platforms, which I realize is just like shooting myself in the foot, because where do I make my living, right? On social media. But like, I would rather have fewer people watch my videos and know that they are, doing some kind of local organizing, or they are taking care of themselves and their neighbors. Um, but when you have these social media apps that no longer are fulfilling that need, they're not going to be as successful in capturing people's time. And I think that's really what we're witnessing right now. Um, did you hear about the YouTube partner program rules change, you guys? Oh my gosh, yes. It's real bad. It's going to be really bad. It's going to be really bad. Um, is it okay if I bitch about that for a second? So TikTok already doesn't pay people, right? I talked about how in like late 2024, I started TikTok in March of 2024, and by May I had gotten monetized. And by October, I was making $4,000 a month on TikTok. Like, that is transformative amounts of money for me. It was way more than I was making on YouTube. And I was like, oh, this is not so bad. I kind of hate this platform, and there's like a lot of petty argumentation, and I'm engaged in discourse, but like, it's funding, helping me get braces for my kid, or like, do my roof repairs or what have you. And then very quickly it started to decline and decline and decline until through 2025, I was making like, maybe $1,000 a month. And then it went down to like 300. And this month I made $32 off of TikTok. Granted, I like hardly use it anymore, but we're seeing all of these creators say the platform does not pay, right? It's not pushing your content. If you are not funded by somebody who is benefiting from the reach of social media, right? If you're not run by somebody behind the scenes who is coordinating with the platform, like, you're not going to get an organic reach anymore. And even if you have a really large platform, like Farming While Beige talked about this, you just don't make any money. And yet the content is using the platform is using your content to make billions of dollars. Since I stopped posting on TikTok, all my old videos from 2024 are getting like tons of reach, and TikTok doesn't have to pay me for that. And so it's just really frustrating. And so people have moved to other platforms. Folks moved to Instagram. Instagram doesn't pay you. So the only way you get paid through Instagram is through brand deals or through memberships, or by automatically resharing your videos to Facebook and hoping that you can get paid that way. And on Facebook, you have to have at least 10,000 followers on a public page, and then you can get paid. But it's hardly worth it, right? I think like a really good month for me on Facebook is I'll make $300, and I'm like grinding, right? So that leaves YouTube. All of these people who are really discontent with TikTok have this year. I saw a bunch of like chorus creators. It'd be like, I can't make any money on TikTok. I don't have any reach. I'm transitioning over to YouTube. And I was like, oh, it's not going to be what you think it is. It's going to go well for you initially. They're going to push your content really hard initially, and then they're going to drop you off unless you're constantly evolving and changing. And even so, right, there's a lot of that movement capture on YouTube as well as TikTok, because these are all like platforms owned by billionaires who overwhelmingly support the regime. So seeing all of these TikTok creators just flood over to YouTube. I saw like, oh, that's rich. Be like, I'm going to focus on YouTube. I saw a couple of other like more centrist Democrat creators be like, I'm transitioning out of TikTok and I'm moving to YouTube. And that then floods YouTube with all of these new creators. So they have changed their conditions for 2027. It's going to be much more difficult to get monetized on YouTube. You're going to need like 8,000 view hours instead of, when I first started on YouTube, it was 1,000, and then it went to 3,000, and now it's 4,000, I believe. They're going to bump it up to 8,000 view hours to get monetized on YouTube. And then they are going to basically not pay you for shorts anymore. If I'm grinding on shorts, which means I spend between 1 and 2 hours a day cutting shorts from my long form videos, which initially shorts were supposed to be like a teaser. You didn't make any money on shorts. It would be like a little teaser of your video, and it would direct people to your long form video, and then they would get the whole message, and that's how you got paid, right? And then it started becoming like more slop, more like TikTok style videos. And they created a creator fund. It still didn't pay anything. You had to get like 1 million views or you wouldn't make anything. And so I was putting out shorts and I was making $0 off of them. But then they changed it to really incentivize, prioritize shorts to compete with TikTok. And in doing that, suddenly, like I could make, right, like a good month, I could make $1,000 off of shorts if I'm grinding. My best month ever for shorts, I made $1,700. Sorry if it makes people uncomfortable. I have no problem talking about money. And like, right, I have to pay 55% self-employment taxes out of that, but still, like, that's unbelievably good money for me. But people who have much bigger reach of their shorts were making like, right, like 5, 6 figures off of just shorts. And I think with this big influx of TikTokers to YouTube, YouTube decided to adjust. It was going to cut into their profit margin. So they've now decided unless your shorts are getting like basically millions of views every month, you're not going to get paid. And it's going to go back to like a creator pool model. You won't make anything unless you are someone with an enormous channel already, or unless you are making like slop content, rage bait, or AI slop content for shorts, you will not make any money on shorts starting February 2027. So, not gonna lie, losing like six, seven, $800 a month, that doesn't feel great. That's not great. Um, and already I'm down 80% because I shot myself in the foot. But whatever. I think we're going to see YouTube creators become much more like TikTok creators and much more like Uber drivers, where we are all gig workers and the platforms are just going to be squeezing us, right? As Google is posting record profits, how much more can we cut back on what we're paying our creators while our ad revenue goes up? Oh, the other thing that's going to really hurt folks like me who make long form content. Oh, hi. I don't know how that happened. Folks who make long form content, they're going to, the ratio of how much you're sharing of ad revenue, like the split between creators and the platform is going to get worse, 5% worse for us. So Google's going to make 5% more and I'm going to make 5% less from every video. So that blows. So yeah, just like little behind the scenes, like that's what it's like. And I think some of that is to, one, for them to maximize their profit, but two, like to control the platforms. Regular people trying to educate folks, regular people trying to share what's happening in their communities, small scale journalists, like small local journalists like Kevin H. Foster here in Portland, or like who is King Triv, right? They suddenly like, have no revenue and they'll rely on their Patreons. And so the idea is to squash small creators and control the narrative. And I think that that's going to continue. Unless you're making something entirely non-political, right? Then I think there's still a chance for you to make a lot of money on YouTube. I agree. We need a union of creatives. I would love a collective, a creator-owned platform that is a collective with a true creator pool, right? Are you guys still seeing me? Someone said, did the feed drop? I hope that let me know if you can't see me. YouTube is recommending vids you've already seen, yes, it is. It is recommending videos that you've already seen. And also I keep having it recommend the same handful of creators that I've clicked not interested on. It's like, why is the platform pushing those folks on me? I don't know if you guys have seen too. It's not just me, right? I'm not like some special, a number of my mutuals, I've seen their numbers go way, way down this year. Thank you. Thank you, Em. So yeah, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how that changes. A lot of folks are talking about going back to regular 9 to 5 jobs, and a lot of folks are talking about shifting their content like 100% to Patreon and trying to build up Patreon. But then, right then, you're asking people to. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about that because I want to make all of my content available whether or not people can afford to pay me $4 a month, right? And so what is lost when you put content behind a paywall for subscribers or patrons only? I feel really conflicted about that. I loved the idea of YouTube of like, okay, capitalist hellscape, but if somebody watches a commercial, they can access everything for free versus buying my permaculture design course and like paying $6, $7, $8,000 to get their PDC. Like they can get everything for free. Yeah. I don't know what has become of Vimeo. I don't know how people I don't know how that works in terms of monetization. I don't really know. You can make Patreon public posts that are free. I do some of that. I completely agree. Yeah. I've encountered a few channels that get recommended and there's no option for not interested or don't recommend. Yeah, it's really messed up. It's so hard, right? Like what would it look like to create YouTube, like just such a wonderful platform for people to share all of their weird like niche interests and like skills and like areas of expertise. And so much of that has been lost through the commodification, like turning it into basically a news network that's controlled just like corporate media. So many of the YouTube channels you see now are so highly produced and they have a whole behind the scenes team, like professional editors. And like, I think something is lost when you turn it into a big corporate machine, which I know people have complained they don't like my thumbnails because they don't seem amateurish enough or folksy enough like my old ones. They're like, that looks too much like all of these corporate talking heads. And I'm like, okay, maybe I should change my thumbnails back to just be plain blue text, white and blue text. I don't know. Because it is like just me. Okay. Sorry to rant about my woes, but I think it matters for people who are consuming content and not just like political content. Most of what I watch on YouTube is like sewing content, other fiber artists. I watch a lot of permaculture gardening content as well. How would a creator collective work? That's way above my pay grade, but it would result functionally sort of like how TikTok creator pool should work, but doesn't really, which is you could structure it as everybody would get a share based on the amount of content that they produce or how many views that they get. But then you get what happened with TikTok, which is where some kind of industry plant has a bot buy them hundreds of thousands of views, or sorry to bitch about Chorus, but like Chorus, those creators all comment on each other's videos and reshare each other's videos, which pushes them harder in the algorithm. So you end up with people who get kind of pushed to the front of the algorithm, get a larger share of the creator fund than other creators. So there's like lots of ways to game the system of a creator pool. I don't know. Probably a question for somebody who is much more experienced in that than me. Nebula is, I believe, the brainchild, the project of Legal Eagle, and I've applied and they have no interest in me. I think it's much more for him and people who are kind of like adjacent to him. So I don't think I'm highly polished enough for Legal Eagle and Nebula. They don't want me. Yeah. Yeah, you do have to apply for Nebula. Nebula is like a private, I think it's sort of like YouTube, but it's subscription based and you get just like it's like Netflix. It's like cable TV, but just reconstituted. So it's all the YouTube content, but ad free, and you pay whatever it is, $8 a month, and you get a set of channels that Legal Eagle has curated for you creators who apply there. And then I hear that they make really good money, but I've only heard that from Legal Eagle, and it's his thing, it's his brainchild. So he said he makes a ton of money there. Well, he's a little bit of an ambulance chaser. I'm not gonna lie. My kid who wants to be a lawyer loves him because she feels like some of his legal breakdowns are actually really good and really approachable for lay folks. So, oh, it's $60 a year. Thank you. I did not look into how much it was. But gosh, just like people are getting nickel and dimed, right? I hate asking people like, would you be interested in supporting my Patreon? Because like, we want people to throw. Well, I think about the folks that I support on like Substack and Patreon and or just like through Venmo, and it's just like it adds up very quickly. You want to support other small creators, but like, how can we make that much more sustainable? I don't know. Oh, thank you for mentioning Oliver's primary in Florida tomorrow. What is that, District 25? I need to talk about that because he's been so honest. It's so refreshing. For folks who don't know, Oliver is very, very clear that what's happening, what the Israeli government of Benjamin Netanyahu is doing is committing a genocide using our tax dollars. And he's been very outspoken. It's been interesting to watch corporate media push back against that and how like just unashamed he is to hold true to his values and to speak really clearly and accurately and decisively about these issues. I think that that is so refreshing. He's not mincing words at all, and he's being platformed to just such a huge audience. I don't know what the polls look like. I haven't looked. Is it Jared Moskowitz that he's running against? I have not looked at the polls yet to see how that's breaking down for him. So there is a Dungeons and Dragons online streaming game called Critical Role, and they started off really rough and relatable, responding to the chat. Now you have to pay to interact with them. Ooh, I should call Casey back, you guys. He's a huge. I have a number of Critical Role shirts. Casey is a huge Critical Role fan. They have the most successful Kickstarter of all time. They raised $11 million on Kickstarter. It was so successful. Their shows now run through Amazon Prime. Yeah, they're very, very highly produced. They are a multi-million-dollar TV show. Very, very different. Not Just Bikes is one of the Nebula creators. Yeah, it totally is more than legal. I just think that like he's the guy who launched it. There's a ton of people on there. I love Not Just Bikes. Yeah. Okay, I'm just reading comments. They have more sleek production. I really struggle with this because it's just me, and like I don't want to look like a TV show. And yet I know I have mistakes in my videos. I know that like I don't bother to wear makeup. I don't bother to have like slick editing. I miss out on like sponsorship opportunities. And at the same time, I love the fact that YouTube is like regular people. I don't like the fact that a lot of shows, they're TV shows on YouTube. I've kind of resisted having like a intro video and an outro video because I don't want to be that highly produced. But yeah, I understand that's what the platform wants. And I wonder if there is space for pushback from folks. I really consciously cultivate the content that I do consume on YouTube to be those smaller folks who don't have a whole team behind them. Not that there's anything wrong. Like they're good people putting out content that have like a whole team that runs them. It just adds that extra layer, right? That makes it less accessible, more hurdles to jump over to be able to get your content to reach people. It sort of reminds me, I know I've talked about this before on my main YouTube. I have this video about the Lloyd Center in Portland, which just closed, which is so sad. The Lloyd Center was a mall that basically went defunct. And while they were trying to figure out if they were going to sell it or not, they offered rental spaces in the old, old Banana Republic and old Anthropologie and old like Sephora, just unbelievably dirt cheap. So you get these tiny, tiny cottage industries, or just people who had like a weird art display. I want you guys to come see my sculptures. The rent was so cheap. There was like like a Magic the Gathering group. There's a community center in there. There were people who had hand sewn clothes. There was a like bricks and minifigs, like a Lego resale store. Just like all kinds of weird stuff in there. And you could see the potential of what people could create if they didn't have the ability to access like giant quantities of startup money, or real cottage industries that people wanted to support. And folks just have like weird, funky stuff. And this past week, we went to 2 days ago, pick up our daughter in Newport. And if you go to Newport, Oregon, we used to live outside of there. There's this area called Aquarium Village, which is sort of like the Lloyd Center. It is supposed to be a tourist trap, but nobody wanted to go there. And all of these little storefronts were abandoned. So now the rent is super cheap. There's like a didgeridoo guy. There's a glass blower. There's a guy who makes like funky ceramics. All of these tiny, tiny little cottage industries that can rent for almost nothing. And you get to see people running a business when they don't have to go get massive loans and go into massive amounts of debt, and they can just do their own weird little thing. It's really interesting to see. Like it's almost like commerce divorced from capitalism. It's divorced from like private equity, definitely. And I wish we could get more of that. I wish YouTube could kind of rekindle that again. But Jared Moskowitz is a progressive leaning centrist. I don't even know if he's progressive leaning. He's just like, I don't know. He was platformed as like a poster child when he got elected, but he is just like 100% pro APAC. He's a poison pill. I agree. Oh, thank you. Thanks for being willing to talk about money. I grew up in a household that was incredibly budget conscious, and my mom would constantly talk about money. So my mom grew up very poor. I think I've mentioned this before, but like no running water for a big chunk of her childhood, and like a lot of food insecurity. And so she was hyper aware of, and she was the eldest child and did like a lot of mothering of her younger siblings. And so she married my dad, who like his parents paid for my mom's college and my dad's college, and then my dad went to medical school and joined the Air Force. And so that huge change for her financially of like suddenly she's married to somebody with a good solid career in the military. Um, she never let go of how incredibly budget conscious she was. So she's constantly talking about, we go to the grocery store, we got to compare prices, we can be really honest about how much things cost and not try to like put on airs and pretend like we can live a higher lifestyle than we can afford. And she was very much like, don't put things on a credit card unless you can pay it off, right? She ran her um, investment club for the officers' wives club. It was called Greenbacks, right? And so my mom would like buy one or two stocks of, whatever they would pool together like a dozen women, and they would all buy just a couple stocks here and there, and learning how to play the stock market. That's how she afforded to pay for college for me, was like doing that kind of thing. So I learned really, really good budget skills and really good penny pinching skills. And then also, I'm just like incredibly, incredibly frugal. And part of the reason that we have not managed to like, part of the reason that our family has been, I think, more financially stable is that I hate consumerism. I hate spending money. I'm a little bit pathological about it. I'm definitely pathological about penny pinching and cutting costs. And so I don't know. I don't feel that stigma about talking openly about money, because who benefits when you won't talk about money? Capitalism, white supremacy, and the patriarchy, right? The patriarchy doesn't want women talking about how we are paid 70% of what men are paid. And white supremacy doesn't want, white coworkers and black coworkers comparing how much they're being paid and seeing that it's not equal, right? The bosses benefit when we are afraid to talk openly about money. And I think there's a lot of dissembling that happens where people want to act like they aren't making as much money as they are, or they want to live far higher on the hog than they can afford, and then they go into debt, right? The average American is $45,000 in credit card, unsecured credit card debt. So, yeah, I try and destigmatize talking about money. You have to pinch nickels now the penny is gone. Oh God, that's so. Oh, I do think too, in college, I read Nickel and Dimed by Barbara Ehrenreich. That really impacted me. I had a copy of the Tightwad Gazette that I got for my 18th birthday. That really influenced me. There's also a book, a Mennonite book called this like Live Simply So That Others Can Simply Live. I have like a whole library of just like frugality books, understanding that penny pinching can only get you so far in an exploitative system, right? People who are struggling financially, it's not because they didn't budget, right? It's because we live in capitalism. So, um, but also significant advantage. The only debt we've ever had is my husband's student loans from college, our mortgage, and then we've struggled really hard with medical debt in the past. Do I think there's any chance Jared Moskowitz will lose his primary? I have not looked at the polls, so I don't know. I have no idea. You guys, I'm so sorry. Florida 25 is so far away from me. Financial literacy has to be taught at schools, even more media literacy and basic literacy. I completely agree. Completely agree. Yeah, I think a lot of Americans don't understand how to budget, and we've not been taught self denial. We live in a culture of instant gratification that benefits from us being massively in debt. And so I think understanding our individual fiscal responsibility, but also understanding the greater framework of how there are systemic inequities and the system is stacked against us. The system is made it so it's not affordable to live here. Like understanding the broader picture of what it's like to live under capitalism. I think that's all really helpful. But our schools are afraid to teach people about alternate economic structures like socialism. So um, not talking about money does serve the exploiters. Yeah. Agree. Well, it's really hard because, like, you may sound like you're bragging, like, right? If I say, "Oh, I was making $4,000 a month on TikTok," I sound like I'm bragging. Um, but then I think that helps people understand what the possibilities are and what the limitations are. When your favorite creator with 3 million followers is like bitching about their finances, and I'm like, girl, I know that you're making like $20,000 a month off of your social media. Like, I know I can look at my analytics and then look at your analytics, and I can tell how much you're making. I think your average person doesn't have access to that kind of information, and so yeah, it's really helpful. Um, it's one of the reasons I really like when you like teachers, for example, have their salary scales public. That's public information, and so it provides so much freedom because there's a set salary scale and it's public. So you know, if I go to work for this school district or this school district, I can see how much I'm going to make, and that's like right up front, right out in the open. Or maybe they're in a state, like I think Washington has a state salary scale. Just provides so much freedom. Mm. I had a bachelor survival course in high school in the 1970s. I know I think in Oregon they teach a financial literacy class. I know when I was in high school, they were starting in Ohio back in the 90s, they were starting to introduce a class where you would learn how to like balance a checkbook and how to set a basic budget. My mom taught me all of that. And I was shocked at how many people didn't know that. Sort of like the same way that like a lot of people don't know how to cook. I'm always shocked at how many of my friends like have no idea how to cook. No, not at all. Um, yeah, what's in San Diego? I missed it, you guys. Sorry. Oh, and teacher salaries in San Diego. Yeah. Do y'all have any other like breaking political things today? I think you guys like we could talk about Donald Trump and like his assistant Natalie, what's her face? We could talk about his bad new hairdo. I just don't have an appetite for any of that anymore, right? Like I don't know. I'm tired of looking at his face and I'm tired of listening to him. I'm tired of like focusing on stories that are like more of the same, right? He was screaming at a reporter earlier today. More of that, like, be quiet. He can't handle women, right? He can't handle competent, assertive women. He's a fragile narcissist. Like, we already know that. We already know that. Do we need to watch one more story about him being more of the same? So I'm sorry that I'm like fatigued and can't talk about that stuff as much as I used to. Um, those videos go really viral, but I just can't. I can't do it. Um, Thinks I'm catching up on comments. I think I took an investing class in college for some reason. I think this is something too that is a really good. Maybe I'll talk about this in this last segment. Um, the disconnect that we see from like when Joe Biden was telling us that the economy is really great, how much politicians in both parties like see the stock market as the benchmark of how well our society is doing, understanding that 1% of the population owns 50% of the stocks and that the top 10% wealthiest Americans own 87% of the stock market. Like, we see so much dissatisfaction, so many people who voted for Trump because we saw corporate Democrats be like, the economy is booming, right? You're accessing all of this prosperity. And they're like, I don't have stocks. I don't have a 401k, or even if I do have a 401k, like that's not the same thing as owning 2, 3, 4% of a company, right? Um, so just how do we adjust the assessment of American comfort and prosperity? I think that's part of that reframing. What does stability look like? What does wealth look like? How do we define wealth outside of the stock market? What other indicators do we have to look at besides GDP for assessing how well people are doing? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Catch my whiff. All right, I love your name. How's the new lady cave working? I am sitting here instead of in that chair because I can't get the internet to reach in the corner. So that's a problem. I don't have air conditioning yet, so it's really hot. Uh, we are going to seal the floor here in a couple of weeks, and then I'm going to paint the outside. And so it's working great though. I don't get interrupted all of the time. I can come out here and do quite a bit of work. I'm really enjoying it. While we were in California, my 15-year-old said he hung out in here a lot. He's really, I don't I don't want to give him a hard time. He's really into singing, but he's embarrassed. He has a great voice. He has perfect pitch and incredible rhythm, but he's like very, very shy. So he would come out in here and close all the doors and practice singing. So I thought that was pretty awesome. Um, oh gosh. I think I had an Amazon shopping addiction that I developed during 2020. I want to thank you because I was almost, oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I think too, if you have to purchase some things from Amazon, you know what? It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. I think people can really cling to the idea that they have to do everything perfectly. And for folks in rural areas or folks who, have mobility issues, or sometimes you can't access something other than through Amazon. Like one of the ways that I have still purchased through Amazon on a rare occasion is that there are some books that I can't get. Some books where people self-publish through Amazon because that's the way that they have access to do that. And so I understand that we can't access all of these solutions, or we can't necessarily boycott perfectly, but doing it imperfectly still has a real impact. Like, I don't want to judge people who are still shopping at Target. I haven't shopped there since February 2025, but I live in a city with lots of other options that are open to me, right? I have other stores that I can access. And I know that not everybody has that option. And when Ruth lived in Newport for the summer, like the Safeway is closing, so there's like Walmart and Fred Meyer, and for a lot of people, they choose Walmart. So you live in a rural area and you work with the cards that are on the table. So, have you tried attaching a direct antenna? I have not. I have not, but I need to figure out. So I have fiber optic here, and they sent me a booster, and I'm going to ask them if I can do like a piggyback booster. Can I do more than one amplifier? I need to call and figure that out because it says that my Wi-Fi is reaching back there, but when I try and film from back there, it's unstable. So I have to film back there, and then I move to this half, and then I upload. And I don't want to move my chair over to this half because this is where my desk is going to be when I get my desk. So I want the strong Wi-Fi by my desk. I do feel like Amazon Prime makes it so that you want to buy things that you don't need. You're presented with crap that you don't need. I think TikTok is that way too. How many people have like their TikTok shop addiction in 2024? So many of my friends were just buying crap that they did not need. And also, as a TikTok creator at that time, it was pushing you to constantly sell things on TikTok. You always catch me. I am Mondays and Thursdays. Mondays here and Thursdays on my other channel, 3 p.m. Pacific. That's when I do lives. 3 p.m. Pacific. I know that like that's not the best time for everybody. It's really hard because I have viewers in Europe, I have folks on the East Coast and the West Coast, and I also have to work it in between when I have to do things like make dinner and yeah, and do garden work. This is a time like in the hot of the afternoon where I'm not going to be doing yard work anyway. So, which my yard is a disastrous mess. Just so people know, I have so much yard work to do. Trish would be scolding us by now. Yeah, I got to get off. Trish, I think, is working. She's a photographer. She has a real job, you guys. She's a photographer. Okay, thanks for. Okay. Yeah, you support the Jeff with every order you make. That's true. I think it's important to understand that it's really hard in a system where everything is controlled by the oligarchy. I make my living on Google. On Google. So right, like YouTube is owned by Google. They support Donald Trump. It's really hard. There's no perfect solution. And that I think that it's okay to try and pick and choose, right? For example, one of the ways that I've really like hard line for me has been Nestle. I don't buy anything from Nestle. Anything. Even though, when I was pregnant with my kids and I had really bad morning sickness, the Maggie hot and sour soup was like the only thing that would help. Nestle bought Maggie after I had my first kid. And so I was like, no more of that. I'm not buying any of that. That's a hard line for me. And I have a huge long list of like all of the products that Nestle owns and all of the businesses that they have partnerships with. And that's exhaustive. That takes a huge amount of energy to try and source things that are not owned by evil Nestle. And for some people, they just like don't have the capacity. So I don't want to judge those folks. I want to encourage them to like maybe access a little bit, like start by not buying Toll House, start by not buying Nescafe, and then see if you can build up your successes from there. Yeah, it's frustrating. I have an iPhone, right? Like Apple is not a friend to the resistance. Apple is not a friend to democracy. I'm doing this on a Mac 2022 MacBook, right? Like, um, oh, I joined a new CSA. Part of it is pick your own. The work is neither quick nor easy. Each week gets a little bit easier. Oh, that's awesome. I know that there's a number of CSAs. So for folks who don't know, I know this is agricultural, but let's talk about it for a second. Community supported agriculture. You buy a share of the future harvest of a farmer, and a lot of CSAs will have a discount on your share if you agree to do volunteer labor, or they will have a section that's pick your own that makes it a little bit more affordable. I'm a huge fan of CSAs, and we frequently will purchase a share or split a share of a CSA with my sister or a friend. Even though I don't necessarily need the garden produce, I'll get some things that they're growing that I don't grow, and so it'll be a diversity. Um, the shorter you can make your food chain, right? The shorter you can make any of your chains, food, fiber, anything that you do, right? The more you can shop local, the more resilient you are, and the more you can disconnect from the billionaires. So, yeah, thank you for that reminder. I think one of the things that's hard for people doing a CSA is that it forces you to like shop out of your own pantry essentially. Like you have this box of produce for the week, and like I have to figure out recipes. It pushes your skills for cooking, and it also really gets you to eat more seasonally. Like, well, crap, it's May and I really want to have a tomato salad, but there's no tomatoes that are local yet. I have to wait until they're in season. That's a really big shift, I think, for a lot of Americans to eat seasonally. Um, I think CSAs too, people can look at them and say, like, this is really expensive because you have to purchase an entire year. Or I know our CSA that we get a share from, they do like a spring, summer, and then a fall, winter share. And it feels like a big outlay, the same way that we buy half a cow. And this year we bought a lamb. That's a huge outlay. But like that's the only beef that we eat for a family of six for the whole year. But we had to have money to buy a freezer, and we had to have money. Basically, what I do is I pay myself a little bit each month, like part of my grocery budget goes into savings each month. So then when I get to November and Amos calls me and he's like, "Do you still want a half a cow this year?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm ready," and I'm ready to write that check. But I know that that takes like a measure of privilege. It takes being able to set aside um, it's like 50 bucks a month or whatever it is that I end up setting aside, depending on how big of a cow share we buy. Oh, um, I have issues getting food. I've been disabled since childhood with autism, and um, I think that this is also a really good point. Like if you have ARFID or you have other circumstances that make it difficult, like you have safe foods for you, it can be much harder to eat seasonally and locally. And understanding that there's not a one size fits all approach, and we all have different ways that we can resist or we can build local resilience, and that they're not universal. I think that allowing people grace to like do things really imperfectly and not judge them but just encourage them, I think is hard. It's not how social media works. Social media is a lot of like shaming, canceling. um yeah, wild blackberries are the PNW official fruit, except that most of them are invasive Himalayan blackberries, unfortunately. I have a video that I need to edit that I filmed 2 days ago about other native berries in the Pacific Northwest. Himalayan blackberries are definitely a free, abundant food resource. They're not as good as the cultivated blackberries, but be vegan plus bacon. You don't need to get it perfect. Yeah, I agree. We don't actually eat that much meat, other than like the half a cow that we buy, and um, yeah, I think it's okay to say I'm going to try and do things and not do them perfectly, because if you set the expectation that your politics have to be perfect, your lifestyle has to be perfect, you'll never start. You'll never start. It makes it feel so overwhelming. If I can't do it perfectly, I shouldn't do it all. I think maybe I'll conclude here. Thanks for letting me go over. This is sort of like my political beliefs as well, is that there's so many other leftists who think that incremental change is not real, and that we can only have like dramatic revolutionary change. And I understand that like social movements are incremental, and that if we tell people, unless we can get, like I saw somebody saying that Abdul Assayed wasn't, he's a progressive Democrat and not DSA, and therefore people shouldn't support him. It's letting that perfect be the enemy of good. believing that unless you can get everything that you want, you should accept nothing. That's such a toxic way to be. It's such a way that like gives you permission to not engage at all. Unless I can get the perfect candidate, I don't have to vote. Unless I can do this act of resistance perfectly, I'm not going to bother at all. Only people with the most privilege can opt out of engaging in those flawed, imperfect interfaces with politics and the economy. So I'm really a fan of like moving the needle incrementally, gaining progress where you can. That permaculture, slow, small solutions, right? Every way that you can advance your cause is worthwhile. Slow and steady wins the race, right? We don't have to say I'm not going to bother unless I can sprint it or unless I can make a giant leap. And also, like even if we don't get everything that we want in the midterms, like there are real substantial benefits to people's lives, like having incremental progress, having some policies improve, having some restoration of any elements of democracy. That really, really matters. So I understand that, like, I'm frustrated that a lot of times there's a corporate Democrat, like here in Oregon, Tina Kotek, versus Republican Christine Drazan. Tina Kotek is terrible, but she's not Christine Drazan. So I understand that even if I don't get everything I want, I'm able to prevent some harm by making sure that I don't allow the person who wants to inflict more harm to get elected. And I think that that is a real struggle in a binary political system where people want all or nothing, or people are frustrated. Like I can bitch about Hakeem Jeffries, but at the end of the day, I understand that he is light years better than Mike Johnson while still not being somebody who will facilitate the good things that we need and deserve, somebody who still is like a hindrance to empowerment and like full rights and like a good quality of life for the American people. But he's not Mike Johnson, right? Yeah. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Okay, y'all. Thank you for all of the other questions. I'm gonna leave it there for now because I went over by 20 minutes and I have 6 videos filmed that I need to edit and get posted. And also I need to work on my sweater. I was too busy yapping and I'm such a big hand talker that I didn't work on my sweater at all. It's okay. I'll have progress done for next time. Thanks for hanging out with me. Please don't forget that if you go to my website, parkerspermaculture.com, I have a landing page for my newsletter. Trish manages that. She doesn't harass you very often. I'm just with really big updates. And then I will be live on Thursday on my main YouTube channel, and that is my permaculture AMA. So any gardening questions, sustainable living questions. I have a video coming out later today that is about carbon capture and about solar power. So I envision that Thursday chat might talk about renewables a little bit more than my normal chat, but that's sort of where I'm looking right now. So thanks for being here with me. Thanks for hanging out with me and being willing to support my side channel and letting me have a space to yap about politics and everything else. Appreciate you guys. Take care, stay cool, and I'll see you guys on Thursday, maybe on my other channel.